I just got back from watching Superman and I just got out of the shower and I have some thoughts. I have a list. I want to give some general notes that I wrote down just for if you click in this video and you don't want a bunch of spoilers, a bunch of like mini spoilers, you won't get them from this little stuff that I'll just rail off the top. Number one, I think the movie is beautiful. It's very bright. I think the color makes a lot of the visual enjoyment of this movie. It's nice to be able to see what's going on, and it gives more depth to the moments of the movie that are a little like darker, not only in like tone, but also literally visually. So I think that's a wonderful aspect of this movie. I think it's well written. James Gunn did a pretty good job in this. I do have like a neg that I'll say in a second that, again, I don't think really is a spoiler, but I think the movie is well written. I think the characters are well written, in my opinion. I never felt like anything was too forced. It's definitely a superhero movie, right? So there's some parts of it where it's like you're suspending your disbelief enough so that everything that we're saying in context of the movie makes sense. But I never thought there was a moment that it was like, okay, eye rolly. And if you thought that, then maybe you're a little pessimistic. I don't know. I do think the performances are really, really good. And I will say, if for no other reason than seeing Nick Holt shine, go watch this movie. He's fantastic in it. I'm not going to say much more because you should go see for yourself if you haven't or you care about watching it anytime soon. But he's fantastic in the movie. I really think almost everyone's fantastic in the movie. I say almost. I can't name a negative acting portrayal, really. Actually, I just lied to you. There's one character that I just didn't jive with. If I had to rank all these characters, it'd be my least favorite one, and it's Beck Bennett's Steve Lombard. If I was ranking, like I said, least favorite character. I don't think he's bad per se, but least favorite character. And in the same vein of like being slightly negative, but not really negative, I do think this movie is slightly fast-paced. Not too fast-paced, but it's definitely an upbeat movie. And this is the slightest spoiler, kind of, not really. I don't think it's a spoiler. We are thrown into the action. There's no like ramp up exposition, like the movie starts in action or under the implication of action, I guess. And so when I say in my notes, quickly paced ever so slightly, but mostly in that a lot happens in just 2 hours and 9 minutes. I literally just mean that. It's from start to finish, stuff is happening. There's really not a down moment in the movie, which I think is fine. Or I guess that's not even true. There are some moments where like it pauses or slows up for you to like understand the levity of what's happening with our characters. And I think that's great. So broadly speaking, again, I'm riffing for a lot of this, but broadly speaking, the movie is incredibly well made. I think it's a great first entrance into like James Gunn's vision for this universe. I'm hoping he exceeds even this, because as much as I really, really like this movie, I have nothing to compare it to within James's vision, which is, maybe that's a cop-out for me to say that I love this movie 10 out of 10, and then I can later be like, oh, it's a 7 out of 10. I don't know. But I genuinely think that this movie was incredibly enjoyable, and I can't think of anything that makes it a bad movie or not a good movie. I totally think it's worth going to see it. So if you're on the fence about it and you happen to click my video, go see it. Have fun. It's a fun movie. It is. Moving on to things that I think are slightly more like spoiler adjacent. But I'm going to try to avoid it as much as I can, or rather, I don't really want to go super into depth about a lot of this stuff. One, because I wanted this to be a more like honest post-viewing reaction. But two, I think it would be disingenuous to say that I could give an in-depth commentary about the movie, having only seen it once. So maybe a little bit later down the line, maybe it's on streaming, when I can buy it, I can watch it a few times and really take some notes on things that I really like, or maybe find some things that I think could be improved. But on first viewing, I think it's an incredible movie. It's super fun, but I digress. David Corenswet is Superman. At least he is the Superman that was written, and exactly the Superman this movie needed. It was incredible to see the almost naive, I don't want to call it naive because that gives it a negative connotation, but the almost naive positivity and humanity that he embodied in this movie as Superman, or rather that Superman embodied. And there are a lot of lines, there are a lot of moments that you really see this, and I never think it's overstated, because in direct contrast to him is Lex Luthor, who is, in my opinion, pretty comically evil. It's definitely grounded. The way the conflict in the story is manufactured with Lex at the center is incredible. It's so good. Again, I'll go into this later, probably in a more in-depth video, but it is a great foil of Superman. It really is just nailed home. Layer on the fact that, like I said, David's performance, but Nick Holt's performance is just, I mean, he kind of steals the show. People have said this before. He's kind of one of my favorite characters to watch on the screen, not because I'm rooting for him, but because I know that he is going to push Superman a little bit, which he does. He's going to push the narrative, but that's kind of the point of a story. And he's also going to like make me question a little bit how I would feel about things like this happening in the real world. Spoiler alert, I don't like it. And seeing it portrayed, like I said, almost comically, as a comically evil, really, really boils that down. I didn't need to be told certain things are bad. Trust me, I'm grown. It's interesting to see Superman's virtuosity, something that, you know, you could argue at times is misplaced. You can argue, you know, when you look at the greater context of the world, at what point do we say that, like, he can't be the law, whatever, put directly against a character that I wouldn't even say is just antagonizing him, but is almost purposely, or maybe without even knowing, doing the exact same thing that Superman's doing because he doesn't like that Superman does that. I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think it's, while a relatively simple premise, it executed pretty well in this movie and enjoyable to watch. It definitely builds the conflict throughout the whole thing. It justifies and contextualizes a lot of the characters, the entire cast of characters, I would say. And all in all, just a great showdown between two, I would say, pretty well-written characters. Something I was not worried about per se, but definitely interested to see how it would play out was the humor in this story, because that's something James Gunn, I would say, is relatively known for, is the humor in his films, regardless of the depth of them. And I totally think it played out great. I don't think it really meddled with the depth of the story at all. It didn't disrupt the flow. In my opinion, jokes landed pretty much exactly how they should have. They were never really overstaying their welcome. And I feel like that's something that a movie can do sometimes, specifically maybe a Marvel movie. Jokes can just hang out for a little longer. And so to see a DC movie that tries to take on this like brighter tone and have this humor element that doesn't do that, it gives me hope that in future projects we won't lose this kind of humor that balances out a lot of the darker moments. And it doesn't overpower, like I said, by overstaying a joke's welcome. I think the flying looked pretty cool. I liked the fishbowl shots. It was a stylistic choice that I think paid off pretty well, and like pulling you in a little bit, kind of using the way the lens warps not only characters' faces but the outside of the screen, or the you know, the edges of the screen, to kind of pull the audience in a little bit. I think it works really cool. I thought it was really, really good, and that's a neg that I've seen from people, which I think might just come down to personal preference, but for me, I really liked it. In a similar vein, maybe not really, I think the fight choreography was pretty good. Ironically, maybe, I don't think Superman had the best fight choreography. There's one scene, I don't want to say what it is again because I'll do maybe a more in-depth view, but there is one scene where I think it probably shows off the most impressive combat of the whole movie. And it's with a character that definitely needs it to levy, you know, their importance to the story beyond other things that they're doing for the team. But I'll leave it there. But I will say I think the fight choreography is really good, especially when you have characters that are very brutish. And this is kind of a point of the movie, actually, that are pretty brutish. And so it seems like we're just hitting each other back and forth and back and forth. You get this really in the opening of the movie, kind of what I'm talking about, where I, growing up as a kid, was always like, Superman is so good because he's just so strong. And I think that's a point of this movie that gets contested and maybe proven wrong. But again, I'd want to dive deeper into that in a different video. But all in all, again, fight choreography, good, super enjoyable fights. There was a good variation of the kinds of fights that were going on too, so I thought that was fun. My last like no spoiler or extremely minimal spoiler note that I have is just that this movie is pretty moving if you let it be. I mean, it's easy to like sit and watch a movie with your arms crossed and not care about the emotional aspect or like the things that are trying to tug at you a little bit, but I am okay with being a sensitive person. And there were a lot of moments in this movie, and I'll talk about one of them in a second. It's a spoiler. But there was a moment in this movie, or a few moments in this movie, that really made me connect with characters in that I could see myself in them, or I can see that I wanted more of those attributes for myself. And like I said, it pulled on me a little bit. And I'm okay with being called a sensitive person. I don't think emotions are a bad thing. And so watching this movie that could easily be like a macho tough guy, like, I'm so strong and I'm gonna punch you so hard and you're gonna die. Seeing it be almost the antithesis to that was super refreshing. I mean, there are moments that really nailed down just the lengths that some of these characters will go to do what they think is right. And whether or not I'm talking about the, protagonist or antagonist, I think all of that is worth, like, maybe not internalizing, but like reflecting on a little bit. So I will say that as a self-proclaimed sensitive person, this movie did its job at like making me feel something. So if that's something you're looking for, head on out to the theater. Okay. All right. I have two spoilers. One is one I'm talking about just because I want to, and I think it's super fun. There is this moment in one of the scenes where Crypto the dog, everyone knows the dog's in the movie, goes after some of the T cubes from Mr. Terrific, and it's like a noted point. Like, Mr. Terrific is like, "What are you doing? Like, leave my T cubes alone. Screw that dog." And there's also another previously established one, even before that, that Crypto isn't a good dog. Like, he just doesn't listen to Superman. But I will say there is a scene when Superman is fighting. It's near the end of the movie. Lex has these drones that he's using to survey the fight and kind of like keep up with what's happening and antagonize Superman a little bit. These drones look similar to the T-Cubes. And so there's a moment where Superman tells Crypto to get the toy. Crypto destroys all the drones and it helps get Lex off of Superman's back. I just think that's a fun moment where like it takes a few things that you don't think are important or just like parts of the story, whatever, part of the writing, and brings them into a moment that's really pivotal for the story. It really helps turn the tide. Again, I just think it's one of those little things with writing. Like, it would have been easy for the writer, James Gunn, or whoever else kind of touched the narrative of the story to say that certain things wouldn't be important, but they all build up to an important thing, specifically maybe these two things I explained with that fight scene. So I just thought that was really interesting. It's something I noticed immediately when that moment happened. I was like, oh, that's why all that's important. I thought it was cool and fun. That's a little thing for me. And then a bigger note, and this is kind of one of the bigger overarching like story elements in the movie. So if you really don't want to see or hear a spoiler about this, don't click off right now. Goodbye. It was so fun having you here. Don't watch anymore. I don't want you to get this part spoiled, because it's kind of it's a lot of the conflict in the movie, not only the external but internal conflict. So Superman has this recording from his biological parents that he hears or listens to. It comforts him, and you hear this in like in the opening scene, because it's what he listens to soothe him while he's getting healed by the yellow sun, right? And Superman in this message is being told, we love you so much. We found a planet suitable for you to go and help people and do good. And then the message kind of cuts off. You can't hear any more of the message, but all Superman heard was that was his goal. His mission was to come to Earth and be a great positive force for everyone. It's later revealed in the movie that the back half of this message was similar to maybe Omni-Man's goal, where you just are supposed to come to Earth because you can do good by ruling over them and by taking up lovers and spreading, Kryptonian DNA and things like that. Like, good for the survival of the Kryptonian race, but bad for humans probably. So that is a big reveal, and it really makes Superman question, who he is as a person. Like, what is his goal? He has always thought he was here to protect Earth, but really he was here to take over Earth because humans are, quote, simple. That is a quote from the message. And then I would say on the other end of his parental spectrum, right, he has his biological Kryptonian parents, and then he has Mom and Pa Kent. Mom and Pa Kent, I think it's pretty obvious, are portrayed as like the quintessential simple person that his biological parents would have been talking about. This proves to be kind of like the rubbing point of this interpersonal conflict that he has going on, not only with himself, but also with the people around him that he cares about, maybe even the entire earth that learns about the true full message, right? And they don't know that Superman didn't hear all of that. So it's really compelling for me to try to break down stories and writing and the composition of things and why they move me so much. And I think the reason I think it is so moving, for lack of a better word, that his parents, Mom, Pa Kent, his parents, the people who raised him, are the simple people that his biological Kryptonian parents would have him rule over. And they're the ones that have taught him so much about what it means to be a human. I think that in and of itself is Superman. That is what makes this character so important, because he could be an Omni-Man. Of course, there's these alternate storylines. You think of Injustice, you think of all these things where he has used his incredible power to his own selfish advantage, but he was just not raised that way. And this movie makes a good point. It's very clear, but it's one thing to be told who you're supposed to be, and it's another to be shown. And Superman was shown how to be a human. Whether or not he is Homo sapien doesn't really matter. And that's a clear point that's made in the movie. I'm not like some incredible person who's coming up with these super deep revelations, but I do think it is just, it makes the movie so good. I don't know what to say. You can call me like easily pleased. I don't know. Maybe I am, but this is the kind of movie that I wanted to watch. One that says, like, you can be told one thing and still choose to do another. No one defines who you are except for yourself, and you do that by choosing to do the right thing or the best thing that you possibly can. And I just think that movie, Superman 2025, shows us that in a way that other Superman movies, at least the Zack Snyder ones, maybe don't. It's not the core of their message. All in all, I'm done talking about it for now anyway, and I just want to say, go see the movie. If you made it this far and you hadn't seen the movie but you listened to the spoilers, sorry, I probably didn't do it justice. Go see it for yourself. And I think I might, if inspired, we'll do a deeper breakdown of this movie, because I just think it's worth it. I think talking about these kinds of stories and supporting them and watching them and just accepting that the world can be a better place if you only try, I think that's an okay thing. I think that's totally okay. I try not to be super cynical. I don't think the world is any better for it. Not my world anyway. Like, you know, the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, people close to me, the people I love, like, they're not better off because I hate the world or I hate people or I hate myself or whatever. So I think a movie like this is a good reminder that it is a choice. It's a choice. You choose to do whatever you do, and you're responsible for those outcomes, those consequences. But if you're trying to do the right thing, it's always going to be a net positive. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I think I am probably going to do that breakdown video. So if that's something you want to see, then you can go ahead and, you know, leave a comment, subscribe. I don't know. Set a reminder for 2 weeks from now to go to youtube.com/ajoll, and maybe you'll find it. I don't know. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.